Hi there, this is Konstantin. I'm a full-stack developer and I'm building my progressive web application with Solid.js and Firebase services. Plan for today is to protect application keys, Firebase application keys. I'd like to refactor configuration a little bit. It's also related to keys. And I'd like to improve build commands a little bit to improve deployment. So let me get down to code. And yeah, before that actually I will show you. After me merging changes from my messaging branch of the GitHub repository to the main branch, I received a message from Firebase saying that I actually published my application key, and they said that you either protect the key or you need to remove it from the GitHub repository. For a front-end application, it's actually not very easy to hide the keys, so I think I will keep the keys published, especially for this particular test application. But I'm going to restrict access to this application key in particular, so my key will only be accessible to a particular domain name or domain names. So let me go to Google Cloud Console. Here, choose a project. You need to change settings of. I'm gonna choose the project already selected here, so I'm gonna choose API and services, and here there is a menu item called credentials, and here I see API keys section with only one item, which is called browser key, auto created by Firebase. When I created a project, a web project, it actually created an application key for me. But by default, it's not. It doesn't have any restrictions to access, so it's easy to test locally, it's easy to test in production, etc. You don't have to care about the domain name or about the API IP address which you access the application from. So here now we are ready to add restrictions because we are very close to deploying the application to production. So I chose here websites and added a couple of entries here. First is ashtangamoon.org, pattern here, supporting all subdomains, and also a local host with 5000 port, which I'm testing from locally. So I added these entities this way, entered information and saved configuration. Let me save it again. Yeah, all good. The key is protected. Let me go to Firebase console. Now, Google Cloud Console is a bit different stuff than Google Firebase console. So don't confuse them. So here I have a project which I'm working with, and there are settings, project settings here. There is environment type setting here. When I deploy to production, I will switch to production. I'm not sure how this affects the deployment or the application behavior. I don't think it affects it significantly, but anyway, I can do it after deployment. Here I have settings for web application. And there is an option here. I will just turn it off. So there is an option here called a link to a Firebase hosting site, and I can use it also to link. It promises me to simplify the application configuration. Not sure if it helps me in any way, because this code remains the same after linking the Firebase hosting site here. But anyway, I linked it. Let's keep it here. And the second thing I need to look at here is cloud messaging. Cloud messaging section has legacy API with a token. I'm not sure if, it needs to be used in my particular case, my particular scenario, but I definitely use these web push certificates. It's called Vapid keys, and there is a public and private key, so I can actually add one more pair, and I can delete key, etc. But there is no any setting to restrict access to this Vapid key, and I'm only committing and pushing to GitHub repository only the public key, so it should be okay, at least at my stage for this particular test application. It should be okay, but of course I should utilize any available opportunity to restrict access to keys. But if there is no an opportunity, I should stick to the default settings, obviously. So let me continue. After restricting access to my application key, let me continue with my configuration refactoring here. So if I go to the src folder here, I have a config file which consists of some settings and also public Vapid key, which I just mentioned. Let's create a separate folder in the src directory and move this config file into this new folder. Rename it to main and keep it for main settings. Okay, let's create another file called keys, which will contain all the keys, application key, Vapid key, etc. So I'm going to move public Vapid key to the new module. Okay, and I need to check all the imports which utilize this public Vapid key and update if the import statement to new module keys. Okay, yeah, I think that's it. We don't have any other place where we use it. It's not all. Let's continue. I have one more section, one more module with configuration. It's for Firebase settings. Firebase settings are stored here. It's an object basically with a few fields like API key, which I just restricted access to, and some other project related settings. Let me create a new constant in the keys module, export const. Let's call it Firebase configuration. Okay, and it should be this object. Let's assign this to the new constant and use this constant instead of hard coding configuration here. Okay, we don't need this section here anymore, obviously. So import, good, should be good. I can save files, reformat files if necessary. They are reformatted automatically with prettier, as you remember. So let's try to run the application now and see what happens after refactoring and after restricting access to the application key. In this particular terminal session, I will run emulators. In the second terminal session, we'll hold build watch command. It will take some time to run to run emulators. Yeah, let's switch to Firebase console, and I will show you how to assign a custom domain to our existing hosted application. Our application has 2 domains. They are just for testing. We can open one and see what it calls. Yeah. So you can easily add one more domain here. In my case, it will be Ashtanga Moon org. And when I'm ready, I will add this domain here, so my application could be served from this particular domain. And then I will be able to, I think I will be able to remove the test domains, at least one of them, because I don't need them. So I'm not ready to assign this domain yet, because it will take some time for me to update DNS settings for this particular domain on my domain registration provider. So I will do it later myself, but now you know where to assign a custom domain to the hosted application, right? Let's switch back to Visual Studio Code. We see that the application, the emulators are run and functioning, and the application is built. I can actually run this application in the browser, open developer console, see what happens here. Let me actually clear the cache, clear service workers, everything, and reload again. If I have any issues here, let me check and try to logging and subscribe. Subscribe successfully, unsubscribe successfully, sign out. Everything is working. You see that the application is run in the emulator mode. Okay, they can now deploy it to our hosting, Firebase hosting, right? To do that, I'm gonna stop the build process and just Firebase deploy the application. Okay, let's see what happens when I run this command. Actually, it builds the application, and it builds the functions, it builds the application also. So it basically builds everything with build commands and deploys everything, all the settings, all the stuff. And you see that the main service worker is generated, meaning that we don't pass so we don't disable the service worker for production. Let's see what happens when we deploy the application. Yeah, I'm showing you this the second or third time because I do it for a purpose. Because there is one thing I'd like to improve here, and you will see it now. Let's give it a few seconds to deploy. I actually intentionally pointed your attention to the fact that we run the application in emulation mode, and this bar at the bottom illustrates that. When we deploy, we actually deploy not from Git, but we deploy from this particular folder, and yeah, it means that we actually also deploy in emulated mode. So, and when we will deploy it, the test domain will contain a version with, let me show you, in emulation mode. I will show you when it's deployed. Yeah, it takes some time for some reason. It updated some stuff. Let's see. Deploying functions, cloud functions. They're actually already deployed, but sometimes it updates it. So it deployed the app, which is good. We can reload it. Clear site data again to clear all the service worker caches, etc. So, and yeah, as I mentioned, you see the bar. We are running application in emulation mode. And if we try to log in, it asks us to log in with to the emulator. I will use these settings and see. No, we have a message here. We cannot log in to the emulator because emulator is hosted on the local host and only available in the local host environment. So we need to somehow instruct the Firebase deploy command to actually disable the emulation mode. And the emulation mode can be disabled by setting white emulate to false, or just removing this environment variable, right? So what I'd like to do is to improve a little bit the commands here. First, to add the deploy command. Firebase deploy. Okay. So I could run it through npm, hopefully. And because Firebase deploy runs npm run build, I think I can pass the variable, the emulate false variable, or not pass emulate parameter at all. It would mean that the application would be built in production mode, not for emulators. But I still need to pass this variable to the build watch, because build watch is kind of my test command, and I'm using it locally. And what else I can improve here? The def command also need this emulate command, right? So, and also PWA disable. Okay, so if I run npm run def, I should run it in emulation mode, and also disable the main progressive web application settings, progressive web application features. You can see that it's run in emulator mode. Yeah, there are some issues because we don't run the application they don't host the application in the emulator, hosting an emulator. So we see some console messages here, some issues, but we actually achieved what they wanted to achieve. We run the application in the emulation mode, and we actually don't. Let me check here. If I clear the cache and reload the application, I will see if we actually don't add any service worker here. So the settings are functioning and functioning properly as I expect them to function. So I can actually remove this environment settings from here to be able to deploy with default settings. And default settings actually disable emulation mode and enable PWA features. So let me try to deploy one more time. Now through npm run deploy and see what happens. I will close unnecessary stuff here. Yeah, it actually created the main service worker, meaning this setting PWA disable is working. And it should run the application in emulation mode. After deployment, we are going to check that. Please be aware of the fact that with every deployment, you actually spend some kind of some resources for Firebase hosting, meaning that if you go over, you will pay for the extra resources you need. So try to minimize the number of times you deploy. So test most of this stuff locally and only when deploy. Yes, of course, the deployment tool optimizes for the cases when nothing in your Firebase Cloud Functions has been changed. In that case, it just skip deploying functions, but still it deploys the site, as far as I understand, meaning that they actually spend some resources. So be careful with that to not go over the quotas, free quota. So we just deployed the application. Let's see what changed here. I will clear site data, reload the page. Yeah, we can see that the emulation bar is missing. And what's here? We see the main service worker file here, enabled, added, and they see Firebase messaging service worker or also. So we have two service workers for different purposes and different scopes, which is good, which is as we planned. We can reload the app again, and no messages are yeah, we have actually one issue here. What's the issue? Okay, this is exactly what I show you. This is permission denied issue, which is caused by the fact that I restricted access to the API key for particular domains. So I need to change the restrictions. Okay, I go to Google Cloud Console again. Choose the application, and yeah, the application, and then API and services, credentials, open browser key, which was created for me before, and add restriction here for this test domain. All right. I click save and see what happens when I reload the app. We don't see any messages anymore. I will additionally clear storage and just in case and reload the application. This message is, yeah, I think it sometimes happens. I think it's because the Firebase messaging service worker has not yet run, but yeah, if you reload the page one more time, yeah, it just disappears. Let me try, and use the authentication here. The requested action is invalid. What's wrong here? From referrer. Okay. Is okay, and I need to allow access from this test application as well. Test domain, actually. For some reason, it uses different domains for different purposes. I will just allow this test domain as well. Yeah. I don't know why they need both of them, but it is what it is. Let me reload the app. Try login again. Yeah, it went through. I choose my user. So yeah, I've been authorized. So now I can click subscribe. I'm subscribed. I click unsubscribe. I'm unsubscribed from push messages, which is good. I just log out and reload the page. So yeah, I think now you know how to actually how to protect your key by restricting access from particular domain names. And we actually together we refactored the configuration. Now we have all the keys in one place, easy to manage, easy to update when I need to update them. And we improved build commands a little bit. Now I'm going to run a local build command to check that I run the application in emulation mode. Build watch. Yeah, you see I passed white emulate true, PWA disable. So if I load the app again, the local one, let me load it here instead of and clear the caches, clear the storage, reset all service workers. Now you can see that the application is run in emulator mode, and we don't register the main service worker here, which is what I wanted to achieve. I can log in here with my existing local user, can subscribe, can unsubscribe, and can log out. Yeah, I think we are good. This is what I wanted to do for this particular video. Thank you very much for your attention. I myself, after this video, I'm going to create a new Firebase application with new application keys, with all the same settings basically, which I use for this test application, and I'm going to deploy it to production. After that, I will be able to assign my ashtangamoon.org domain here through the hosting settings, and I will be able to have my application up and running on the main domain. By the way, my initial application is accessible through ashtangamoon, vanilla ashtangamoon.org. This is the initial application, just vanilla JavaScript, no integration with Firebase services, and it's still hosted on Vercel, and it will probably be hosted on Vercel. And the new application will be hosted on ashtangamoon.org. The difference will be visible, and it will be the ability to sign in and subscribe to push notifications. That's right. Thank you very much for your attention. See you on the flip side.